My name is Madison Blake. I'm 29 years old, and 3 hours after I buried the woman who raised me, my family sold her wedding ring for $12,000. Not because they were desperate, not because there was a hospital bill, not because my grandmother had asked them to. They sold it because my little sister's wedding venue needed a deposit by 5 o'clock. I found out standing in my apartment, still wearing the black dress I had worn to Grandma Eleanor's funeral, with rainwater dripping from the hem onto my kitchen floor. The house was silent except for the refrigerator humming and my phone buzzing over and over with messages from relatives I barely knew. Everyone kept saying the same thing. Your grandmother would want peace. Don't make things ugly. Lauren only gets married once. As if my grandmother had not only died that morning, but somehow become responsible for funding a ballroom, a champagne tower, and a flower wall with her initials turned into wedding decor. I had gone to my bedroom to open the small cedar box Grandma gave me before she passed. Inside that box was supposed to be her sapphire wedding ring, the one she wore for 57 years. The one she twisted around her finger whenever she was thinking. The one that clicked softly against coffee mugs, kitchen counters, sewing needles, and every birthday card she ever signed for me when my own mother forgot. 3 months before she died, she placed that ring in my palm and closed my fingers around it. This is not for the loudest person in the room, she told me. This is for the one who stayed. I stayed. When she had heart surgery, I stayed. When she forgot which pill came after dinner, I stayed. When my mother said hospice was too emotionally draining, I stayed. So when I opened that cedar box and saw only the empty blue velvet cushion where the ring had been, something inside me went very quiet. I called my mother first. She answered on the fourth ring, sounding annoyed. Madison, please don't start tonight. Where is Grandma's ring? Silence. Then a sigh. The kind of sigh she always used when she wanted me to feel like a burden. It was your grandmother's ring, she said. It belonged to the family. My hand tightened around the empty box. Where is it? Another pause. Then she said it like she was telling me she had returned a sweater to the store. We sold it. For a few seconds I forgot how to breathe. You what? We got $12,000 for it, and before you act dramatic, it went toward something beautiful. Lauren's wedding. In the background I heard my sister laugh. Then Lauren's voice came through the phone, light and careless. Grandma would have wanted something happy to come from all this. All this. That was what she called the death of the woman who packed my lunches, signed my school forms, taught me how to thread a needle, and sat in the front row of every single school play while my parents were busy rebuilding their lives without me. I asked my mother one question. Did you steal it from my apartment? She snapped back immediately. You can't steal family property. That was the first mistake. The second mistake came 47 seconds later, when my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Whitaker & Sons Jewelers. A man named Aaron Whitaker asked if I was Madison Blake. I said yes. His voice lowered. Miss Blake, I'm calling about the sapphire ring registered under your name. An estate buyer contacted us this afternoon to verify the appraisal after purchasing it for $12,000. My knees almost gave out. He continued. We have the repair receipt, ownership declaration, insurance photographs, and appraisal file. They're all in your name. I looked down at the empty cedar box. Then Aaron asked the question that changed everything. Miss Blake, did you authorize your brother to sell your ring? No, I didn't. And that was the moment I realized my family hadn't just stolen my grandmother's ring. They had signed my name, lied to a buyer, erased a page from her estate papers, and used the last gift she ever gave me to pay for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. They thought they had sold my grandmother's memory for $12,000. They forgot the receipt was in my name. I was 10 years old the first time I understood that adults could abandon a child without ever using the word abandon. My parents called it a temporary arrangement. My mother, Denise, sat across from me at our kitchen table in Columbus with a mug of untouched coffee between her hands. My father, Robert, stood by the sink like he was waiting for the conversation to be over before it even began. Neither of them looked angry. That was the worst part. If they had been yelling, maybe I could have told myself it was a mistake made in the heat of a terrible divorce. But they were calm, careful. almost relieved. "Madison," my mother said, using the soft voice she saved for situations where she wanted to sound kind without actually being kind. "Your father and I are going through a lot right now." I stared at the cereal bowl in front of me. The milk had gone warm. "We both need time to rebuild our lives," she continued. "And your grandmother has more patience for this kind of thing. This kind of thing." She did not say my name again. She did not say my fear, my school, my birthday, my bedroom with the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, or the fact that I still slept with a stuffed rabbit named Daisy tucked under my arm. She called me this kind of thing. My father cleared his throat and finally looked at me. "It's just for a little while, Maddie." A little while turned into the rest of my childhood. Grandma Eleanor lived in Worthington, in a small white house with green shutters and lavender bushes lining the walkway. Her porch sagged slightly on the left side. Her kitchen smelled like cinnamon, black tea, lemon furniture polish, and whatever soup she was making that week. She had old wooden floors that creaked in the hallway, a sewing room filled with fabric stacked by color, and a back garden where she talked to her tomato plants like they were difficult relatives. The first night I stayed there, I did not unpack. I sat on the edge of the guest bed with Daisy in my lap and waited for my mother to come back. Grandma stood in the doorway for a long time, not pushing, not filling the silence with fake comfort. Then she walked in, sat beside me, and placed her hand over mine. That was when I noticed the ring. A deep blue sapphire, oval-shaped, surrounded by tiny diamonds. It looked too elegant for her worn hands, hands that had hemmed church dresses, peeled potatoes, fixed loose buttons, and held mine every time I crossed the street. The ring caught the light from the bedside lamp and turned it into something soft. "Your grandfather gave me this in 1969, she said. I did not answer. "He was nervous," she continued. "Dropped it right into a bowl of chicken noodle soup at the diner where he proposed." Despite myself, I looked at her. Grandma smiled. "I said yes before he could fish it out." That was the first time I laughed in her house. Not a big laugh. Not the kind that meant everything was fine. Just a small sound, cracked at the edges. But Grandma heard it, and she did not try to make it bigger. She simply squeezed my hand. "You don't have to be okay tonight," she said. "You just have to sleep. We'll figure out tomorrow when tomorrow gets here." That became the way she raised me, one tomorrow at a time. She enrolled me in school. She packed my lunches. She wrote notes on napkins and tucked them into brown paper bags. "You are brave. You are smart. Don't trade your lunch cookie unless the offer is excellent." When I cried because my mother forgot my 11th birthday, Grandma baked a vanilla cake with lavender frosting and stuck 11 mismatched candles into it. When my father promised to pick me up for a weekend and never showed, she drove me to the library and let me check out 8 books instead of 5. When I got my first period and sobbed in the bathroom because I wanted my mother, Grandma sat on the floor outside the door and talked me through it like there was nowhere else in the world she needed to be. She showed up. That was the difference. My parents sent birthday cards sometimes, usually late. Christmas gifts arrived with gift receipts, as if even their generosity needed an exit plan. Phone calls became shorter, then rarer, then reserved for holidays where they could say they had tried. But Grandma was there for everything. She sat in the front row at my 5th grade winter concert, clapping too loudly when I played 3 wrong notes on the recorder. She took pictures of me before my first middle school dance, even though my dress was wrinkled and my hair refused to curl. She signed every permission slip, attended every parent-teacher conference, and once argued with a soccer coach for benching me after I missed practice because I had the flu. "She is a child," Grandma told him, her sapphire ring flashing as she pointed one finger in his direction. "Not a professional athlete with sponsorship obligations." I had never loved her more. That ring was always there, clicking against coffee mugs, tapping softly against the kitchen counter when she was thinking, glinting under fluorescent lights as she signed school forms where the line said parent or guardian, pressed against my forehead when she checked if I had a fever, resting against my cheek when she wiped away tears I was embarrassed to shed. To everyone else, it was jewelry. To me, it was proof that love could have a sound, a soft click, a steady hand, a person who stayed. Grandma was not rich. She had worked as a seamstress for nearly 40 years, first in a dry cleaner's alteration room, then from her own sewing room after Grandpa died. She fixed wedding gowns, hemmed prom dresses, took in church suits, and somehow made every customer feel like their clothing mattered, because they mattered inside it. She taught me practical things: how to sew a button, how to balance a checkbook, how to make chicken soup without measuring anything, how to keep receipts in envelopes marked by year. That last one mattered more than I knew. People can lie with a straight face, Maddie, she used to say, sliding papers into neat little folders. Paper doesn't. At 13, I thought that was just one of those old person sayings, like measure twice, cut once, or never trust a man who is rude to waitresses. By 29, I would understand she had been warning me. When I graduated high school, my parents came late and left early. My mother said the chairs were uncomfortable. My father said traffic back to Columbus would be terrible if they waited too long. Grandma stayed until the last picture was taken, then took me to dinner at a little Italian restaurant where she ordered dessert first because, as she put it, some rules are only suggestions wearing formal clothes. When I became a teacher, she cried harder than I did. "My girl is going to make children feel safe," she whispered, hugging me in the parking lot outside the district office. That matters more than people know. I built my life close to her, not because I had no ambition, like my mother once implied, but because Grandma had built her whole life around making sure I never felt disposable. I wanted to be close enough to return the favor. By the time she turned 78, her hands had started to tremble. She laughed it off at first, just my fingers getting dramatic. Then came the dizzy spells, the cardiologist, the medication schedule taped to her refrigerator, the hospital visits she insisted were just tune-ups. My family appeared more often once the words estate planning entered the conversation. My mother started dropping by with casseroles she had not cooked herself. My father suddenly had opinions about Grandma's roof, her bank account, and whether the house was too much for one old woman. My brother Trevor offered to help sort through valuables, which mostly meant opening drawers when he thought no one was looking. My sister Lauren floated through the house, commenting on furniture, dishes, and vintage scarves like she was mentally tagging items for a future sale. Grandma noticed. Of course she noticed. One afternoon in late August, she called me over after school. I found her at the kitchen table wearing her blue cardigan, the one with pearl buttons and a small coffee stain near the cuff. In front of her sat a cedar box I had seen only twice in my life. "Maddie," she said, "sit down." My chest tightened. "Are you okay?" "I am old," she said. "That is not the same as an emergency." I sat across from her. The lavender bushes outside the kitchen window moved gently in the wind. Grandma opened the cedar box and took out the sapphire ring. For the first time in my life, I saw her hand without it. It looked wrong. "Grandma, no," I said immediately. "Please don't." She smiled, but her eyes were wet. "This ring was given to me by someone who chose me every day until the day he died. I kept it because it reminded me what love is supposed to feel like." She reached across the table and placed it in my palm. The sapphire was cool against my skin. "I'm giving it to you because you understand that." I shook my head. "Mom will lose her mind." "Your mother loses her mind when a restaurant forgets lemon in her iced tea." I almost laughed, but my throat hurt too much. Grandma closed my fingers around the ring. "This is not for the loudest person in the room," she said. "This is not for the person who thinks wanting something is the same as deserving it. This is for the one who stayed." My eyes burned. "I don't want you to feel like you have to give me something." "I don't," she said. "That is why I want to." 2 days later, she insisted we go to Whitaker & Sons Jewelers downtown. She wore lipstick for the appointment. I drove. She held the cedar box on her lap with both hands. Aaron Whitaker, the owner, greeted her like an old friend. "Mrs. Eleanor," he said, smiling. "Still wearing the prettiest sapphire in Franklin County?" "Not for long," Grandma replied. "It belongs to my granddaughter now." I started to object again, but she shot me a look that silenced me faster than any scolding ever could. Aaron resized the ring, cleaned it, photographed it, and prepared an updated appraisal. When he asked whose name should be listed on the ownership declaration, Grandma leaned forward. "Madison Blake," she said clearly. "Not my estate, not my daughter. Not the family, Madison. Aaron looked at me, then back at her. Understood. I paid the service fee with my debit card because Grandma had conveniently forgotten her wallet, which I knew she had done on purpose. The receipt printed with my name at the top, Madison Blake. I remember staring at it, embarrassed by how official it looked. Grandma took the receipt, folded it once, and slid it into the cedar box beneath the velvet cushion. Keep that, she said. Paper doesn't lie. At the time, I thought she was being cautious. I did not know she was building a shield. I did not know that 3 months later, after her funeral, my family would open drawers in my apartment while pretending to comfort me. I did not know they would take that ring, sell it for $12,000, and use the money to pay for Lauren's wedding. And I definitely did not know that the receipt Grandma tucked beneath the velvet would be the first thing that proved they had stolen from the wrong woman, because they thought grief would make me quiet. Grandma had spent 19 years teaching me how to stay soft without staying weak. And when the time came, I finally understood why. Grandma Eleanor died on a Thursday morning in November, just before sunrise. The nurse from Riverside Methodist called me at 5:42 a.m. Her voice was soft in the careful way hospital voices get when they are about to hand you a sentence that splits your life into before and after. Miss Blake, I'm very sorry. Your grandmother passed peacefully about 20 minutes ago. For a moment, I did not understand the words. I was sitting on the edge of my bed in the dark, one hand already reaching for the jeans I had left on the chair the night before because I was supposed to visit Grandma before school. I had packed a thermos of lavender tea. I had graded papers early so I could sit with her without checking the time. She asked for you last night, the nurse said gently. We told her you had gone home to rest. She smiled when we said that. I pressed my hand over my mouth. I had gone home because my mother told me I looked exhausted and that Grandma would hate seeing me run myself into the ground. It was one of the few times Denise had sounded almost maternal, and I had been too tired to recognize it for what it was. Convenient. I drove to the hospital while the sky was still black. The roads were wet. Streetlights blurred across my windshield. I do not remember parking. I do not remember walking through the sliding glass doors. I remember the smell of disinfectant and burnt coffee. I remember the elevator doors opening on the 4th floor. I remember seeing her bed, empty of everything except her body. Grandma looked smaller than she had the day before. Her mouth was relaxed, her hair brushed neatly back from her forehead. Someone had folded her hands over the blanket. Her left hand looked wrong, bare. The ring had already been given to me months before, but I still expected to see that flash of blue, that familiar sapphire catching the light. Seeing her hand without it made the finality sharper. I sat beside her and held her fingers. I'm here, I whispered. That was all I could say. I was the one who called the funeral home. I was the one who signed the paperwork. I was the one who answered questions about burial clothes, flowers, obituary wording, and whether the family wanted a viewing. When I called my mother, she answered with sleep still in her voice. Madison, what's wrong? She's gone. Silence. Then a long exhale, not a sob, more like inconvenience leaving the body. Oh, she said. When? About 20 minutes ago. Another pause. I can't talk long. Lauren has her final venue walkthrough at 10, and she's already upset about the florist changing the centerpiece quote. I stood in the hospital hallway, looking through the glass at the room where her mother had just died. Mom, I said slowly, Grandma is dead. I know that, Madison. The irritation in her voice was immediate. I'm processing too, okay? Everyone processes differently. My father called 2 hours later. He asked which funeral home I had chosen, how much it would cost, and whether Grandma had left instructions about expenses. Trevor texted a thumbs-up emoji when I sent the service details. Lauren did not respond at all until almost midnight. Can you make sure the funeral doesn't run long? I have a bridal fitting after. I stared at the message until my screen went dark. The funeral was held 3 days later on a cold gray Sunday afternoon. Rain tapped against the stained glass windows of the small chapel like impatient fingers. I had chosen lavender and white roses because Grandma loved lavender. She said it smelled like a clean heart. Only 23 people came. Neighbors. 2 women from her church sewing circle. Aaron Whitaker from the jewelry store. an old customer whose wedding dress Grandma had altered 30 years earlier. People who were not obligated by blood but came anyway. My family arrived 12 minutes late. My mother wore black, but her pearls were too large and her grief was too polished. My father looked uncomfortable, as if the coffin had personally embarrassed him. Trevor kept checking his phone. Lauren wore a black dress so tight she had to sit sideways in the pew, and every few minutes her diamond engagement ring flashed as she typed under her purse. During the service, I spoke. My hands shook around the folded paper. "I used to think family meant the people who were supposed to love you," I said. "Grandma taught me that family means the people who actually do." My voice broke on the last word. From the front pew, my mother lowered her head. Anyone watching might have thought she was crying. I knew better. Denise always lowered her head when she wanted other people to imagine her feelings for her. After the burial, people hugged me in the rain. Mrs. Keller from next door pressed a casserole recipe into my hand because Grandma had once told her I liked it. Aaron Whitaker touched my shoulder and said, "Your grandmother was very proud of you, Madison. More than proud." My family stood near the parking lot under one large black umbrella, talking in low voices. I walked toward them because some foolish part of me still thought grief might make us human to each other. As I got closer, I heard Lauren say, "If we can just get through the next 2 weeks, the wedding schedule should be fine." My mother answered, "At least the timing works out. We can finally move forward without all this hospice stress hanging over everything." I stopped walking. The rain ran down the back of my neck. My grandmother had been in the ground less than an hour. Hospice stress. That was what they called her pain, her fear, her slow, brave dying. The nights I spent sleeping in a chair beside her bed. The mornings she apologized because I had to help her drink water through a straw. My father saw me first. "Maddie," he said, too quickly. "We were just discussing logistics." "Of course you were," I said. My mother's eyes narrowed. "Don't start today." That was always the phrase. Don't start. As if I were the one who created pain by naming it. We went to Grandma's house after the cemetery because Denise insisted we needed to secure valuables before people got ideas. She said this while looking directly at me. Grandma's house felt wrong with all of them inside it. Trevor opened drawers without asking. Robert stood in the living room flipping through a folder of insurance papers. Lauren wandered into the sewing room and came out holding a cream-colored silk scarf. "This is cute," she said. "Could I use it for the rehearsal dinner?" I looked at her. "No," she blinked. "It's a scarf, Madison. It was Grandma's." Lauren rolled her eyes. Everything here was Grandma's. My mother stood by the mantel, scanning the room with the sharp focus of a woman taking inventory. Then she asked, "Where's the sapphire ring?" The house went still. I should have lied faster. Instead, I froze for half a second. Denise saw it. "You have it," she said. "Grandma gave it to me." Trevor laughed under his breath. "Convenient." I turned to him. "Excuse me?" "Nothing. It's just convenient that the most valuable thing she owned somehow ended up with you before anyone else knew about it." "She gave it to me in August." Lauren's mouth fell open. "August? So while she was sick?" She was alert. She knew exactly what she was doing. My mother made a soft, wounded sound. "Madison, your grandmother was vulnerable. You should have told us." "Why?" I asked. "So you could explain why Lauren needed it more?" Lauren's face hardened. "This isn't about me, but it was already about her. In that room, everything always became about Lauren." My father stepped between us. "Let's not make this ugly." I almost laughed. Ugly was standing in a dead woman's house counting her belongings while the cemetery mud was still on your shoes. I left before I said something I could not take back. For the next 2 days, my family acted concerned. My mother texted every few hours. "Did you eat? Are you sleeping? Do you need company?" Trevor offered to drop off a few boxes from Grandma's house. Lauren sent a heart emoji and wrote, "I know we're all emotional." Grandma would want us to be close. I wanted to believe some part of them had softened. Grief makes you stupid that way. On Wednesday evening, they came to my apartment with 3 cardboard boxes, a grocery bag of sympathy cards, and a casserole my mother had absolutely purchased from a store and transferred into her own dish. "You look terrible," Denise said when I opened the door. "Thanks. I mean exhausted. I am exhausted." She hugged me. Her perfume was too sweet. Over her shoulder, I saw Trevor carrying a box down the hallway toward my bedroom. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Just putting this with the other stuff," he said. I was too tired to argue. Lauren started crying in my kitchen. Not about Grandma exactly, about how hard it was to plan a wedding while everyone was sad. My mother held her. My father asked if I had coffee. Trevor came back from the hallway after maybe 3 minutes, empty-handed. 3 minutes. That was all it took. After they left, the apartment felt colder. I stood in the kitchen for a while, staring at the casserole dish none of us had eaten from. Then something pulled me toward the bedroom. The cedar box was still in my nightstand drawer. For 1 second, I felt foolish for worrying. Then I opened it. The blue velvet cushion was empty. No sapphire, no diamonds, no soft click of love against a coffee mug, just the hollow impression where the ring had been. My whole body went numb. I called Trevor first. No answer. Lauren, no answer. My father, voicemail. Then my mother. She answered on the 4th ring. "Madison, please don't start tonight." "Where is Grandma's ring?" Silence. I could hear voices in the background. Lauren's voice, Trevor's laugh. "Mom." Denise sighed. "It was your grandmother's ring. It belonged to the family." My fingers tightened around the empty box. "Where is it?" Some decisions had to be made quickly. My stomach dropped. "What did you do?" "We sold it." The room tilted. "For how much?" $12,000. "And before you act dramatic, it went towards something beautiful. Lauren's wedding deposit was due today." I could not breathe. Lauren's voice came through the speaker, bright and offended. "Grandma would have wanted something happy to come from all this. All this. My grandmother's death. My grief. The last gift she had ever placed in my hand." I said, "You stole it from my apartment." Trevor's voice cut in from somewhere near the phone. "You can't steal family property." My mother came back on the line. "You are grieving. You are emotional. Don't turn this into something disgusting." I looked down at the empty cedar box. Then my phone buzzed against my cheek. An incoming call. Whitaker & Sons Jewelers. "I have to go," I whispered. "Madison, do not hang up on me." I ended the call and answered the new one. "Miss Blake?" a man asked. "This is Aaron Whitaker from Whitaker & Sons. I'm sorry to call so late, but this is urgent." My knees weakened. "What happened?" "I received a verification request this afternoon from Harbor Estate buyers. They purchased a sapphire ring matching the appraisal file we have on record." I gripped the edge of my dresser. "They bought it? For $12,000, he said. "But there's a problem." My throat closed. "The ownership declaration, repair receipt, insurance photos, and appraisal file are all under your name. Madison Blake, not Eleanor Whitaker. Not the estate." I closed my eyes. Grandma. Even gone, she had left a hand on my shoulder. Aaron's voice lowered. "Miss Blake, did you authorize your brother to sell your ring?" I opened my eyes and stared at the empty cushion. "No," I said. The word came out quiet, then stronger. "No, I did not." Aaron exhaled slowly. "Then you need to file a police report immediately in Madison. Your grandmother told me to keep copies of everything. She said someone might try to confuse the truth after she was gone." I sat down on the floor beside the open drawer. For the first time since the funeral, I did not cry. I reached into the cedar box, lifted the velvet cushion, and found the folded receipt tucked beneath it. Madison Blake, my name, my proof. And under the receipt, a note in Grandma's handwriting, for Maddie, because she stayed. My family thought they had stolen a ring. What they had actually stolen was evidence. I did not sleep that night. I sat on the floor beside my open nightstand drawer with the cedar box in my lap, staring at the folded receipt like it was something alive. Outside my apartment window, rain slid down the glass in crooked lines. My phone kept lighting up on the carpet beside me. "Mom, Trevor, Lauren, Mom again." I did not answer. At 11:14 p.m., my mother left a voicemail. "Madison, I know you're upset, but you need to calm down before you say something you can't take back. This is exactly why we didn't want to involve you in estate decisions. You get emotional and make everything about yourself." I played it twice, not because I needed to hear it again, but because I wanted to save it. Every word, every careful little twist of the knife, every attempt to turn theft into my instability. I created a folder on my phone and named it Ring Evidence. Then I saved the voicemail there. Trevor texted at midnight. "Don't be stupid. You call the cops over this and you're done. Nobody in this family will ever speak to you again. I stared at the message and felt something cold settle in my chest. For most of my life, that threat would have hurt. Now it sounded almost peaceful. Lauren sent hers at 12:37. You're really gonna ruin my wedding because Grandma liked you best? You always hated that I was happy. I saved that one too. By 3 a.m., I had photographed the empty cedar box, the receipt, Grandma's handwritten note, and every message they had sent. I emailed copies to myself, uploaded them to a cloud folder, and wrote down a timeline on a yellow legal pad because Grandma had taught me never to trust memory when people were planning to lie. At 8:55 the next morning, I was standing outside Whitaker & Sons Jewelers before the door was even unlocked. The shop sat on a quiet street downtown between a florist and a bakery. I had been there with Grandma in August. Back then, she had worn lipstick in her blue cardigan and acted like handing me a family heirloom was as ordinary as buying thread. Now I stood there with swollen eyes, unwashed hair pulled into a knot, and the cedar box clutched in both hands. Aaron Whitaker opened the door himself. He was in his early 60s, silver-haired, neatly dressed, with the kind of face that looked gentle until something serious happened. When he saw me, he did not smile. "Madison," he said softly, "come in." The bell above the door gave a small, cheerful ring that felt completely wrong. Aaron led me to a small office behind the showroom. The walls were lined with framed photographs of engagement rings, anniversary pieces, old watches, and handwritten thank you notes from customers going back decades. On the desk was already a manila folder with my name written on the tab. Madison Blake. Seeing it made my throat tighten. "I pulled everything after we spoke," Aaron said, sitting across from me. "I'm sorry, I had hoped there was some misunderstanding." There wasn't. My voice sounded flat. He opened the folder. One by one, he laid the documents in front of me. The repair receipt, the resizing invoice, the appraisal certificate, the insurance photographs, the ownership declaration, a close-up photo of the ring. Deep blue sapphire, tiny diamonds, yellow gold band slightly worn thin at the bottom from 57 years on Grandma's hand. And my name. Everywhere. Madison Blake. Not Eleanor Whitaker. Not Denise Blake. Not the family. Me. Aaron tapped the ownership declaration gently. "Your grandmother was very clear. She asked me twice whether this would be enough to prove the ring belonged to you if anyone challenged it." My eyes lifted to his. "She asked that?" He nodded. "She said, 'My granddaughter is kind, Aaron, but kind people need paper when selfish people start telling stories.'" I looked down fast because the room blurred. That sounded exactly like her. "She knew," I whispered. "I think she suspected," Aaron said. "Maybe not the details, but yes, Madison, I think she knew." He reached into the folder and pulled out another sheet. "This is the verification request from Harbor Estate buyers. They sent us photos of the ring and asked us to confirm the appraisal value. Their buyer noted that the seller claimed it came from an estate liquidation." Trevor. Aaron's mouth tightened. Yes, Trevor Blake was listed as the seller, but the check was made out to Denise Blake. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Trevor had taken it. My mother had cashed it. Lauren had used it. My father had stayed quiet. Everyone had touched the theft in their own way. Aaron made a copy of the full file for me, then stood. "I called Marlene Price, the owner of Harbor Estate Buyers. She agreed to meet this morning. She has not resold the ring yet." I stood too quickly. The room tilted. Aaron reached out but did not touch me. "It's still there?" "As of this morning, yes. She put it in the safe after I told her there was an ownership issue." For the first time since opening that empty box, I felt air enter my lungs all the way. Harbor Estate Buyers was 15 minutes away, in a strip mall near a dry cleaner and a tax preparation office. The kind of place my mother would have called tacky if she were not using it to turn my grandmother's memory into wedding money. Marlene Price met us at the counter. She was a sharp woman in her 50s with red glasses, short gray hair, and the alert expression of someone who had spent years deciding whether people were desperate, dishonest, or both. "I want to be very clear," she said before I could speak. "We purchased the item in good faith based on the seller's representation that it was estate property." Aaron placed the folder on the counter. "And I understand that," he said. "But this appraisal file predates the sale, and the ownership declaration names Madison Blake." Marlene put on her glasses and read. Her expression changed slowly. Professional caution became concern. Then concern became anger. She looked at me. You didn't authorize this sale? No. You didn't sign any release? No. Her lips pressed together. Then we have a problem. She disappeared into the back room and returned with a tablet and a printed purchase record. My hands were cold before I even looked at it. Seller Trevor Blake. Associated party Denise Blake. Item description: 1 sapphire and diamond ring. Purchase amount $12,000. Reason for sale: estate liquidation. Payment: cashier's check issued to Denise Blake. Then I saw the line at the bottom: authorization confirmed by Madison Blake, and beneath it a signature, my name, written by someone else. For a second, the whole shop went silent around me. I could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. I could hear a car passing outside. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. That is not my signature, I said. Marlene's face hardened. I was afraid you'd say that. Aaron leaned closer, studying the page. Madison, do you recognize the handwriting? I did. Not perfectly, not like a smoking gun in a movie, but I had seen that looped M before, that dramatic dip at the end of the E. Lauren wrote thank you cards exactly like that. Big, pretty letters, the kind she practiced because she thought everything about her life should look good in photos. My sister, I said. I think Lauren signed it. Marlene closed her eyes for half a second. All right, I'm going to show you the security footage. She led us to a cramped office behind the buying counter. The air smelled like paper, metal, and stale coffee. She clicked through files on a computer until a black and white video filled the screen. There they were. Trevor walked in first, wearing the gray jacket he had worn to my apartment. My mother followed him, carrying her leather purse. Lauren came last, holding her phone up like she was recording a behind-the-scenes clip of something charming. Trevor placed my cedar box on the counter. My cedar box. I pressed my fingers against my mouth. On the video, Marlene's employee opened the box and removed the ring. Lauren leaned closer, smiling. There was audio. Not perfect, but clear enough. At least Grandma is contributing to the wedding somehow, Lauren said. My mother laughed. Not loudly, just enough. I felt sick. Trevor said, my sister won't care. She's sentimental for about 5 minutes, then she moves on. I whispered, I never moved on from anything they did. Aaron looked at me, but said nothing. The employee asked something about authorization. My mother slid a piece of paper across the counter. Lauren bent over it and signed. My name. I watched my sister forge my name while my mother stood beside her and my brother looked at his phone. Not one of them hesitated. Marlene stopped the video. I am placing the ring on hold pending police investigation, she said. But you need to file the report today. If this is confirmed as stolen property, the sale is void and we'll pursue recovery of funds from the seller. I nodded. My throat was too tight for words. The Columbus police station smelled like old carpet, copier toner, and burnt coffee. At first, the officer at the desk listened with the patient expression of someone expecting a family argument over inheritance. Then I opened the folder. I showed him the receipt, the ownership declaration, the forged signature, the security footage Marlene had copied to a flash drive, the texts, the voicemail, Grandma's note. For Maddie, because she stayed. The officer's posture changed. He stopped leaning back. He picked up a pen. Miss Blake, he said. Do you want to file this as a theft report? My hands were folded in my lap. My mother's voice echoed in my head. Don't make this ugly. Then Grandma's voice followed it. Paper doesn't lie. I looked at the officer. Yes, I said. I want to file the report. He wrote that down. And based on this signature, we may also be looking at forgery. The word sat between us. Forgery, not drama, not grief, not family misunderstanding. Forgery. By the time I left the station, the sky had turned gray again. My phone had 21 missed calls. Grace Whitman, the attorney Aaron recommended, saw me at 4 that afternoon. Her office was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building near the courthouse. She had short black hair, reading glasses, and no patience for emotional manipulation. She read everything in silence, the entire folder, every text, every document, every ugly little sentence my family had left behind because they never thought I would be brave enough to use them. Finally, she looked up. This is not just about a ring anymore. I know. No, she said, tapping the forged signature. I don't think you do. They sold property registered to you, represented it as estate property, forged your authorization, and converted the proceeds for private use. I swallowed. What happens now? Now we find out what else they changed. I frowned. What do you mean? Grace opened a laptop and searched the probate filing for Grandma's estate. After a few minutes, she turned the screen toward me. There's a personal property memorandum attached to your grandmother's will. I remembered Grandma mentioning it once. A list of personal items. Who got what? The china cabinet, the sewing machine, Grandpa's watch. Grace scrolled, then stopped. Her eyes narrowed. That's strange. What? The filing jumps from page 2 to page 4. My stomach turned cold. Maybe it was scanned wrong? Maybe. But her voice said she did not believe that. Grace made 2 calls. The second was to the law office that had drafted Grandma's will. She put the phone on speaker. This is Grace Whitman. I'm representing Madison Blake regarding the Eleanor Whitaker estate. I need a certified copy of the complete personal property memorandum. A pause. Then the receptionist said, Of course, I'm looking at the original file now. Grace watched me carefully. Can you confirm whether there is a page 3? Another pause. Yes, the receptionist said there is. My hands curled around the arms of the chair. Grace asked, What is listed at the top of page 3? The receptionist read it aloud. My sapphire wedding ring goes to my granddaughter, Madison Blake. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Grace said very calmly, Please send that certified copy immediately. She ended the call and leaned back. My ears were ringing. They removed it, I whispered. Grace's expression was cold now. Someone filed the estate paperwork without the page that proved the ring was yours. I thought about my mother standing in Grandma's living room asking where the sapphire ring was. Not surprised, not grieving, calculating. I thought about Lauren saying Grandma would have wanted something happy to come from all this. I thought about Trevor threatening me for daring to object. Grace closed the folder. Madison, she said, they didn't just steal your ring. I already knew what she was going to say. They removed a page from your grandmother's will. Outside her office window, traffic moved through the wet streets below. People going home, people buying groceries, people living normal lives. Mine had just split open again. But this time I had proof. Not feelings, not accusations, proof. And my family had no idea how much of it Grandma had left behind. By the next morning, my family stopped pretending they were sorry. At 7:18 a.m., my mother posted on Facebook. I only knew because my cousin Beth sent me a screenshot with a message that said, Maddie, what is going on? The post was classic Denise Blake. No direct accusations, no names, nothing obvious enough to look cruel. Just enough poison wrapped in concern that anyone reading it would know exactly who she meant. Our family is grieving the loss of my beautiful mother, Eleanor. Unfortunately, grief can make people lash out in painful and unexpected ways. Please pray for us as we navigate false accusations, family division, and the heartbreaking reality that some people value possessions over peace. By 8 o'clock, there were 36 comments. Praying for you. So sad when money tears families apart. Your mom would want everyone together. Stay strong, Denise. I sat at my kitchen table, still in the sweater I had slept in, reading strangers comfort my mother for the theft she helped commit. Then Lauren posted an Instagram story, a black screen, white letters, a broken heart emoji, trying to plan the happiest day of my life while being attacked by someone who can't stand seeing me loved. Below it, in smaller text, Grandma, I wish you were here. You would understand. I stared at that sentence until my vision blurred. Grandma would understand theft? Grandma would understand forgery? Grandma would understand her granddaughter turning a funeral into a wedding fundraiser? My phone rang. Aunt Carol. I almost didn't answer, but some old instinct still lived in me. The instinct that said maybe if I explained clearly enough, someone would finally choose to understand. Hi, Aunt Carol. Oh, honey, she said immediately, her voice heavy with the kind of sympathy that already had a verdict attached. Your mother is beside herself. I closed my eyes. Did she tell you why? She said you're trying to press charges over a ring, because they stole it. A pause. Well, that's a strong word. It's the correct word. Madison, I know you loved Eleanor. We all did. But family jewelry is complicated. Your mother said the ring was part of the estate. It wasn't. Grandma gave it to me. I have the receipt, the appraisal, the ownership declaration, and a page from her personal property memorandum. Another pause, longer this time. Your mother said you're confused. There it was. Not wrong, not angry, confused. The softer word people use when they want to take your credibility without sounding cruel. I'm not confused. She said grief is making you obsessive. I looked at the yellow legal pad on my table. Timeline, calls, documents, screenshots, evidence, obsessive. That was what they called being prepared when they expected you to collapse. Aunt Carol, I said, they forged my name. Her voice dropped. That's a serious accusation. Yes, I said, it is. She sighed like I had disappointed her. Just think about what your grandmother would want. For the first time that morning, my voice did not shake. She wrote down what she wanted. That's the page they removed. I hung up before she could answer. By noon, the story had spread through every branch of the family tree I had never been allowed to climb. Cousins I hadn't seen in 10 years messaged me. An uncle I barely remembered called me selfish. A woman married to my father's cousin wrote, "Your sister's wedding is once in a lifetime. You can always buy another ring. Buy another ring." As if I could walk into a store and purchase the hand that held mine through childhood. At 1:03 p.m., Trevor texted me, "You're making Mom look bad online. Fix it." I saved the screenshot. At 1:11, Lauren texted, "If my venue cancels because of this drama, I will never forgive you." I saved that too. At 1:26, my father finally called. I answered because, unlike my mother, he did not usually perform. He avoided, he minimized, he let other people do damage, then walked in afterward holding a broom and calling the mess unfortunate. "Madison," he said quietly, "this has gone far enough." "Has it? You filed a police report. They forged my signature." "You don't know that. I watched the video." Silence. For 3 seconds I thought maybe that would matter. Then he said, "Even if Lauren signed something, I'm sure she didn't understand what it meant." I almost laughed. "She signed my name on a form authorizing the sale of my property. Your sister is under a lot of stress. Grandma was dead. That's not fair." "No, Dad. What's not fair is all of you standing in my apartment pretending to comfort me while Trevor stole from my bedroom." He exhaled sharply. "You need to be careful. Your mother is talking to an attorney." "Good," I said. "So am I." That stopped him. "You hired a lawyer?" "Yes." "Madison?" His voice changed then. Not angry, afraid. "You don't want to do this to your family." I looked at Grandma's cedar box on the table. "No," I said. "I didn't. But you did it to me first." He hung up. That afternoon, Grace called me into her office. When I arrived, she had already printed the Facebook post, the Instagram story, and several messages relatives had sent me. "I want you to understand what they're doing," she said. "They are trying to control the narrative before the facts become public." "I know." "No," she said, looking at me over her glasses. "You feel it. That's different from knowing it. They want you emotional. They want you defensive. They want you posting angry paragraphs online so they can point and say, 'See, she's unstable.'" I sank into the chair across from her. "What do I do?" "Nothing publicly. No posts. No comments. No emotional replies. Save everything. Forward threats to me. Let the documents speak." Grandma's voice again. "Paper doesn't lie." Grace opened another folder. "I received the certified copy from your grandmother's attorney." She slid it across the desk. "The complete personal property memorandum. Page 1, household items. Page 2, sewing equipment, china, books. Page 3, jewelry and personal keepsakes. At the top, in Grandma's careful handwriting, my sapphire wedding ring goes to my granddaughter, Madison Blake. She has already received it from me directly. This item is not to be treated as estate property." My fingers touched the sentence. "Already received it from me directly, not estate property." Grandma had not just given me the ring, she had anticipated the lie. Grace turned another paper around. "This is the version your mother submitted to probate. Page 1, page 2, page 4, no page 3. "It could be argued as a scanning error," Grace said. "If that were all we had." I looked up. "It isn't?" "No." She slid over a printed email. "From Denise Blake to Langford and Pike Probate Services. Date 2 days after Grandma died. Subject to state paperwork. Please submit only the necessary pages for the initial filing. We do not need outdated personal notes or old gift lists creating confusion. The family will handle sentimental items privately." I read it 3 times. Outdated personal notes, old gift lists, creating confusion. My grandmother's final written instruction about the ring had been reduced to an inconvenience. Grace leaned back. "This is intentional concealment." The words landed heavily. "What happens now?" I'm filing an emergency motion in probate court to compel production of the complete memorandum, freeze disputed personal property transfers, and notify the court of potential fraud. The police already have the theft report. This gives them more." I nodded, but my body felt distant from me. "Madison," Grace said more softly, "are you all right?" I stared at the paper. "She knew," I whispered. "Grandma knew they would do this." Grace did not answer right away. "Maybe she knew who they were," she said, "and maybe she trusted who you were." That nearly broke me. That evening, Aunt Carol called again. This time her voice was stiff. "Your mother wants everyone to meet at my house tomorrow night. No lawyers, just family." I almost said no immediately. Then I thought of my mother's post, Lauren's story, Trevor's texts, my father's silence. All of them counting on me to be alone in a room full of people already trained to doubt me. "No," I said. "If they want to meet, Grace comes with me." Aunt Carol made a disapproving sound. "That seems hostile." "So does stealing a ring from a grieving woman's bedroom." She did not know what to say to that. The meeting was at 7 the next night. Aunt Carol's house smelled like pot roast and furniture polish. The living room was full when I arrived. My parents, Trevor, Lauren, Aunt Carol, 2 cousins, and my father's brother, Mark. Every face turned when I walked in. Then Grace stepped in behind me. My mother's expression changed for less than a second. Fear. Then she covered it with outrage. "You brought an attorney to a family conversation?" Grace smiled without warmth. Given the forged signature, the stolen ring, and the altered probate filing, that seemed wise. Lauren burst into tears immediately. This is insane," she said. "You're ruining everything." I looked at her. "No, Lauren, I'm naming what you did." My mother stood. "Enough. Madison, we are willing to forgive you if you withdraw the police report and stop spreading lies." I stared at her. "Forgive me?" "Yes," she said, lifting her chin, "because we understand you are grieving." Grace opened her briefcase. "Mrs. Blake, before you continue, I recommend you remember that several statements made tonight may be relevant in both civil and criminal proceedings." Trevor scoffed. "Oh, come on, it was Grandma's ring." Grace placed the ownership declaration on the coffee table. "No, it was Madison's ring." My mother's face tightened. She manipulated my mother into signing that. Grace placed the medical note beside it. Eleanor Whitaker was evaluated by her physician 3 days before signing the ownership declaration. She was found alert, oriented, and capable of making independent decisions. My father stared at the floor. Lauren wiped her eyes. "She didn't need it. I needed help with the wedding." The room went quiet. There it was. Not grief, not confusion, not family legacy. Need. I turned to my sister. "You needed a venue deposit, so you sold the last thing Grandma placed in my hand." Lauren's tears vanished. "You always act like you're the only one who loved her." "No," I said. "I act like I'm the one who showed up." My mother pointed at me. "You always wanted to be the victim. Even as a child, you made everything about what you didn't get." I felt the old wound open. The kitchen table, the warm cereal, my father by the sink, my mother saying Grandma had more patience for this kind of thing. For 1 second, I was 10 years old again. Then I looked at the woman standing in front of me, and I realized something. She had been using the same weapon for 19 years. Guilt. Only now it did not fit in her hand the way it used to. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "I wanted you to love me at all." Nobody moved. Even Grace looked down. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Trevor tried to recover first. "You can't prove anyone removed anything from the will." Grace placed the full memorandum on the table, then the probate filing. Then Denise's email. 3 pieces of paper, 3 quiet blows. Aunt Carol leaned forward, reading. Her face changed. "Denise," she said slowly, "what is this?" My mother snatched the email off the table. "That was taken out of context." Grace held out her hand. "That is my copy. You may keep looking at it, but I wouldn't advise destroying it." For the first time in my life, I watched my mother lose control of a room. Not because someone yelled louder, because paper sat on a coffee table and refused to lie for her. I stood. "I'm not withdrawing the police report. I'm not apologizing. I'm not paying back Lauren's venue deposit. And I am not pretending Grandma wanted this." Lauren's voice cracked. "My wedding is falling apart." I looked at her. "Then maybe you shouldn't have built it with stolen money." I walked out before anyone could answer. Grace followed me to the porch. The night air was cold. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from release. "You did well," she said. "I don't feel like I did." That's because doing the right thing often feels terrible before it feels clean. My phone buzzed before I reached my car, a message from an unknown number. "Ms. Blake, this is Officer Ramirez. We reviewed the new probate documents. We need you to come in tomorrow morning. The prosecutor wants to discuss additional charges." I stared at the screen. Grace read it over my shoulder and nodded once. "My mother didn't just sell the ring," I said. "No," Grace said. "She tried to erase the sentence where your grandmother gave it to you." I looked back at Aunt Carol's glowing windows. Inside, my family was probably already deciding how to twist what had just happened. But this time, it didn't matter, because the truth was no longer trapped in my mouth. It was in receipts, in video, in emails, in Grandma's handwriting, and by tomorrow morning, it would be in the hands of the prosecutor. The next morning, I sat across from Officer Ramirez in a small interview room that smelled like stale coffee and printer toner. Grace sat beside me with her briefcase open, the complete memorandum clipped neatly on top of the stack. I had barely slept. My body felt heavy, but my mind was strangely clear, like something inside me had burned past exhaustion and turned into focus. Officer Ramirez was in his 40s, calm, careful, the kind of man who asked questions slowly because he wanted the answers to matter. "We reviewed the documents your attorney provided," he said. "The receipt, the appraisal, the ownership declaration, the video from Harbor Estate buyers, the forged authorization, and the discrepancy in the probate filing." He glanced at Grace. "And the prosecutor's office agrees there is enough to expand the investigation." I folded my hands under the table so he would not see them shaking. "What does that mean?" "It means this is no longer being treated as a simple disputed property case," he said. "We're looking at theft, forgery, and possible probate fraud." The words were clinical. The pain behind them was not. Probate fraud sounded like paperwork. What it really meant was my mother had taken my grandmother's final written wish, removed it from the record, and replaced it with silence. Grace spoke next. "The court hearing this afternoon is critical. If the judge accepts the complete memorandum into the probate record and recognizes Madison's ownership, the criminal case gets much stronger." Officer Ramirez nodded. "And if the judge asks you questions, Miss Blake, answer only what is asked. Let your attorney handle the arguments." I almost laughed. 3 days ago, my family had expected me to beg for my own property back. Now I had a police officer and a lawyer teaching me how not to accidentally weaken a case. Grandma would have told me to sit up straight, so I did. The probate hearing was scheduled for 2 o'clock at the Franklin County Courthouse. I arrived with Grace at 1:30. The hallway outside courtroom 4B was crowded with attorneys holding folders, families whispering around estate disputes, and people in suits pretending their grief had nothing to do with money. My family was already there. My mother wore a navy dress and pearls, the exact outfit she wore whenever she wanted to look wounded but respectable. My father sat beside her, staring at his hands. Trevor stood against the wall with his arms crossed. Lauren had sunglasses on indoors. When she saw me, she took them off slowly, like she was in a movie where she was the wronged woman. "You happy?" she hissed. Grace stepped slightly in front of me. "Do not speak to my client." Lauren's face twisted. "Oh, please. You're not some celebrity attorney. This is family." Grace smiled. "Then your family should stop committing chargeable offenses." Trevor took one step forward. My father grabbed his arm. For once, Robert Blake did something useful. Inside the courtroom, Judge Marion Holloway sat high above us with silver hair, narrow glasses, and the kind of stillness that made everyone else feel louder than they were. Grace presented first. She laid out the timeline cleanly. August 24th, Eleanor Whitaker gifted the sapphire ring to Madison Blake. August 26th, Whitaker & Sons Jewelers resized, appraised, photographed, and registered the ring under Madison's name. November 9th, Eleanor passed away. November 12th, Trevor Blake, accompanied by Denise Blake and Lauren Blake, sold the ring to Harbor Estate buyers for $12,000. November 13th, Madison Blake filed a police report after discovering the ring had been taken from her apartment. Then Grace placed 2 probate filings side by side. Your Honor, the version submitted by Denise Blake omitted page 3 of the personal property memorandum. The certified copy from Eleanor Whitaker's drafting attorney includes page 3, which clearly states the sapphire wedding ring was given to Madison Blake and was not estate property. Judge Holloway looked down at the documents. The courtroom went very quiet. My mother's attorney, a thin man named Paul Mercer, stood. Your Honor, this is an unfortunate misunderstanding during a period of intense grief. My client believed the ring remained part of the estate and acted in the family's collective interest. Judge Holloway lifted her eyes. The family's collective interest? Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked at the purchase record. The $12,000 cashier's check was issued to Denise Blake personally, not to the estate. Mercer cleared his throat. My client intended to reimburse the estate once matters were clarified. Grace stood. Your Honor, we have bank records showing the money was spent within 24 hours on Lauren Blake's wedding venue, a bridal boutique, a credit card payment, and a $1,000 transfer to Trevor Blake. My mother's head snapped toward her attorney. He had not known that. Grace had. She handed the records to the clerk. Judge Holloway read silently. I watched my mother's face change. Not dramatically. Denise never liked to lose control in public, but the color drained slowly from her cheeks, starting at the mouth. Then Grace said, "We also have security footage." The judge nodded. "Play it." A small monitor was turned toward the bench. The courtroom did not see every detail, but we heard the audio clearly. Trevor's voice, "My sister won't care. She's sentimental for about 5 minutes, then she moves on." Then Lauren, "At least Grandma is contributing to the wedding somehow." The sentence landed like a slap. Lauren made a strangled sound. My mother closed her eyes. My father did not move. I stared at the table in front of me because if I looked at Lauren, I was afraid I would stop being composed. Judge Holloway removed her glasses. "Miss Blake," she said, looking at my mother, "did you know at the time of sale that Madison Blake claimed ownership of the ring?" My mother rose slowly. "Your Honor, Madison was emotional. My mother was vulnerable, we believed. That is not what I asked." My mother's mouth closed. The judge repeated slower. "Did you know Madison Blake claimed ownership?" Denise swallowed. "She said my mother gave it to her." "And did you include the page of the memorandum that addressed that gift in your probate filing?" My mother looked at Mercer. He did not save her. "I did not believe it was necessary." Grace's pen stopped moving. The judge's expression hardened. "You did not believe a written instruction from the decedent regarding a specific item of personal property was necessary in a probate filing?" "It was outdated," my mother said weakly. Judge Holloway looked at the certified page. It was dated 6 weeks before the decedent's death. No one spoke. Then Trevor, because Trevor had never learned that silence could be a gift, muttered, "This is insane. It was one ring." The judge looked at him. "One ring that did not belong to you, Mr. Blake?" Trevor's jaw tightened. Grace stood again. "Your Honor, we request an immediate order requiring the return of the ring to Madison Blake, reimbursement to Harbor Estate buyers by the individuals who misrepresented ownership, sanctions for the incomplete probate filing, and referral of the matter to the prosecutor's office." Mercer objected, but his voice had already lost. Judge Holloway ruled from the bench. The ring was to be returned to me immediately upon release from evidence processing. Denise and Trevor were ordered to reimburse Harbor Estate buyers $12,000 within 30 days. My mother was removed as proposed estate representative. The complete memorandum was admitted into the probate record. My family was ordered to pay my initial legal fees related to the emergency motion. And then came the sentence that made my mother grip the edge of the table. This court is referring the incomplete filing and related conduct to the prosecutor's office for review of potential fraud upon the court. Fraud upon the court. Not family drama. Not grief. Not a misunderstanding. Fraud. We stepped into the hallway afterward and for a few seconds nobody moved. Then Lauren exploded. "My wedding is ruined." People turned. My mother grabbed her arm. "Lauren, not here." But Lauren was crying now, real tears or angry tears, I could not tell. "You did this," she said, pointing at me. "You couldn't let me have one thing." I looked at her hand. Her engagement ring caught the courthouse light. "One thing?" I said. "You had our parents. You had every birthday, every holiday, every excuse. Grandma gave me one thing, Lauren, and you sold it." Her face crumpled with rage. "She's dead, Madison." The hallway went silent. I felt Grace's hand lightly touch my elbow, grounding me. I took one breath. Yes, I said. And somehow she still told the truth better than all of you. Trevor stepped closer. You think you won? Grace turned to him. Mr. Blake, I strongly suggest you stop speaking. He looked at her, then at me. You're dead to us. This time, the words did not hurt. They landed somewhere far away. Maybe because the family he was threatening to take from me had never really existed. 2 days later, the consequences started. Harbor Estate buyers sent a demand letter for the $12,000. Lauren's venue called her after local gossip reached one of the coordinators. They did not cancel because of morals. They canceled because the deposit was tied to an active theft investigation, and their legal department wanted no connection to disputed funds. The bridal boutique froze Lauren's dress order. Trevor was called in for formal questioning. My mother stopped posting about grief. By Friday afternoon, Officer Ramirez called me. The prosecutor approved charges for Trevor Blake related to theft and unauthorized sale of property. Denise Blake is under review for forgery and probate fraud. Lauren Blake may be questioned regarding the signature. I sat at my desk after school, surrounded by construction paper, turkeys, and spelling worksheets, listening to the words that turned my private pain into public record. Do I need to do anything? Not right now, he said. Just remain available. That night, Lauren called me from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. When I did, she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Madison, please, the venue canceled. Mom is freaking out. Trevor says he might need a lawyer. This is going to destroy everything. I leaned against my kitchen counter, looking at the empty cedar box. No, I said quietly. It was already destroyed when you built your wedding with stolen money. She sobbed harder. Grandma would hate what you're doing. I closed my eyes. For 1 second, I saw Grandma at the kitchen table, sliding the receipt beneath the velvet cushion. Paper doesn't lie. No, Lauren, I said. Grandma knew exactly what you would do. That's why she left me proof. I hung up. The following Monday, I was called to the Property Evidence Office to sign preliminary release paperwork. The ring could not come home yet. It still had to be processed, photographed, and logged. But Officer Ramirez let me see it through the evidence bag. The sapphire sat inside clear plastic, tagged with a case number. My grandmother's ring. My ring, reduced to an exhibit. I pressed my fingers lightly against the outside of the bag. For weeks, I had imagined that getting it back would feel like victory. Instead, all I felt was grief. Because the ring had survived. The paperwork had survived. The truth had survived. But Grandma was still gone, and my family had tried to sell the last piece of her love like it was nothing more than a price tag. Officer Ramirez asked, "Are you okay, Miss Blake?" I looked at the sapphire through the plastic. "Yes," I said. Then I corrected myself. "No, but I will be." Because for the first time since Grandma died, the people who took from her were no longer deciding what the story meant. The court had heard the truth, the police had the evidence, the prosecutor had the case. And soon my family would learn that some things cannot be bought back with apologies after the receipt has your victim's name on it. The ring came home 12 days after the hearing. Not in the cedar box, not on Grandma's finger. Not even in one of those little velvet pouches jewelry stores used to make something feel precious. It came back inside a clear plastic evidence bag with a white label across the front. Case number, item description, date logged, sapphire and diamond ring. I stood at the property desk at the police station while Officer Ramirez slid it across the counter. For a second, I could not make myself touch it. The sapphire looked darker through the plastic, almost black under the fluorescent lights. The gold band was still slightly worn at the bottom from decades of Grandma washing dishes, kneading dough, sewing hems, stirring soup, writing checks, and holding my hand. "Once you sign here," Officer Ramirez said gently, "it's released back to you." I picked up the pen. My signature shook, but it was mine. That mattered now. When he handed me the bag, I held it with both hands. It weighed almost nothing. That was what surprised me. After everything it had carried, my grandmother's love, my family's greed, the proof, the hearing, the police report, I expected it to feel heavy. It didn't. It felt fragile, like a memory that had survived something it should never have had to survive. "Thank you," I said. Officer Ramirez nodded. For what it's worth, Miss Blake, most people don't come in with documentation like that. Your grandmother made sure you had what you needed. I looked down at the ring. She always did. I drove home without turning on the radio. The city moved around me like nothing had happened. People crossed streets with coffee cups in their hands. A delivery truck blocked half a lane. A woman walked a golden retriever wearing a red sweater. Life kept going in all its ordinary ways, which felt both insulting and comforting. When I got to my apartment, I placed the evidence bag on my kitchen table. Then I made lavender tea. Not because I wanted it, because Grandma would have. Steam rose from the mug in thin white curls. I sat across from the ring and stared at it for a long time. I had imagined this moment so many times. I thought I would feel victorious. I thought I would cry from relief. I thought I would put the ring on immediately and feel Grandma close to me again. Instead, I felt tired. Deeply, completely tired. The kind of tired that comes when your body finally realizes it does not have to stay ready for the next attack. My phone buzzed. Mom, I almost let it ring. Then I answered. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, my mother said, "I hope you're satisfied." Her voice was rough, but not with guilt, with humiliation. I looked at the evidence bag. I got the ring back. "You destroyed Lauren's wedding." "No," I said quietly. "You used stolen money for Lauren's wedding. Those are different things. She is your sister." "I know." "Then how could you do this to her?" There it was again. That old family magic trick. They could take from me, lie about me, forge my name, erase Grandma's wishes, and somehow the wound only became real when I refused to bleed quietly. "Mom," I said, "Grandma gave me that ring." She was confused. She wrote it down. She was old. She was clear. She was manipulated by you. I closed my eyes. For 19 years, I had wanted a sentence from my mother that would finally sound like love. I had wanted, "I'm sorry." I had wanted, "I should have been there." I had wanted, "You deserved better." But some doors do not open because there is nothing behind them. Goodbye, Mom. Madison, don't you dare hang up on me. I ended the call. My hands were steady. That surprised me too. A message came from Dad an hour later. "Your mother is under a lot of pressure. Please don't make this worse." I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, "She is under pressure because she made choices. So did you." I sent it. He did not answer. Trevor texted 2 days later. "I didn't know it was legally yours. Not I'm sorry I took it. Not I'm sorry I went into your bedroom. Not I'm sorry I threatened you." Just a careful little sentence built to reduce criminal exposure. I forwarded it to Grace and did not reply. Lauren left a voicemail the following week after her bridal boutique officially canceled the dress order. "You got what you wanted," she sobbed. "I hope that ring keeps you warm when you have no family left." I saved the voicemail, not because I needed it for court this time, because I needed to remember what the price of pretending had been. The criminal case did not end quickly. Cases like that never do. Trevor's attorney tried to argue that he believed he had permission. Lauren claimed she signed where our mother told her to sign and did not understand the form. My mother's attorney called the missing probate page an administrative oversight. Grace called it exactly what it was, a lie with formatting. The prosecutor eventually offered a deal. Trevor pleaded guilty to unauthorized sale of property and received probation, community service, and a restitution order. Lauren avoided charges by cooperating, but the statement she gave confirmed my mother had told her to sign my name because Madison would make a scene if asked. My mother was charged with attempted probate fraud and forgery-related misconduct. She took a plea to avoid trial. No prison, but 18 months of probation, court costs, legal fees, and a public record that followed her into every room where she used to pretend moral superiority was part of her outfit. She also had to reimburse Harbor Estate buyers, $12,000, the exact number she thought made Grandma's ring worth selling. When Grace called to tell me the plea was accepted, I was sitting in my classroom after dismissal, peeling name tags off old folders. Children's drawings covered the wall behind me, crayon suns, crooked houses, families with stick figure arms stretched too wide. "Are you okay?" Grace asked. I looked at a drawing one of my students had made of me. She had given me a purple dress, yellow hair even though mine was brown, and a giant smile that took up half my face. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I thought justice would feel louder." Grace was quiet for a moment. Sometimes justice is just the moment people lose the power to keep lying. After we hung up, I sat there alone for a while. Then I opened my desk drawer and took out the necklace chain I had bought the day before. That night, I removed the ring from the evidence bag for the first time. The plastic crinkled as I opened it. The ring slid into my palm. Cool, solid, real. I expected to break down, but I didn't. I just sat at the kitchen table, holding it under the soft yellow light, tracing the worn band with my thumb. "Hi, Grandma," I whispered. The apartment was quiet. No answer. But the silence did not feel empty. I threaded the chain through the ring and clasped it around my neck. The sapphire rested against my chest, just below my collarbone, close enough that I could feel it move when I breathed. I did not want it on my finger. Not yet. Maybe not ever. It had been Grandma's wedding ring. Then it became my proof. For now, I wanted it near my heart. A few weeks later, I went back to Grandma's house. The estate process had shifted after my mother was removed. Grace helped appoint a neutral administrator, and the house would eventually be sold according to Grandma's will. Part of my share would come to me. Part would go toward closing the estate. Part, I had already decided, would become the Eleanor Whitaker Kindness Fund at my school. Not a huge foundation, not a dramatic gesture, just a small fund for children who needed winter coats, field trip money, lunch balances paid, backpacks, art supplies, the quiet things that make a child feel less separate from everyone else. Grandma would have liked that. The house smelled faintly stale when I opened the door. No soup, no tea, no lemon polish, just dust in closed rooms. I walked through slowly. The sewing room still had scraps of fabric in a basket. The kitchen still had the small chip in the counter where Grandma once dropped a cast-iron pan and blamed it on gravity being rude. The lavender bushes outside had gone brown for winter, but when I opened the back door, I could still smell them faintly under the cold air. I stood in the garden with the ring against my chest. "I got it back," I said. My voice shook. "And they can't say you didn't mean it anymore." Wind moved through the dry lavender stems. I closed my eyes. For so long I had thought healing would mean not hurting, but standing there I understood that healing was not the absence of pain. It was the moment pain stopped being proof that they had won. They had taken the ring. They had sold it. They had lied. They had tried to turn grief into a weapon and love into a receipt, but they did not get to keep the story. Grandma did, because she wrote it down, because she knew me, because she trusted that when the time came, I would stop apologizing for telling the truth. On Monday, one of my students noticed the ring on my necklace. "Miss Blake," she asked, pointing at it, "is that expensive?" I looked down at the sapphire. Then I smiled. "Some people thought it was worth $12,000. Her eyes went wide. "That's a lot." "It is," I said, "but they were wrong." She tilted her head. "What's it worth then?" I touched the ring gently. "It's worth every morning someone packed my lunch when nobody else remembered, every school play someone came to, every birthday candle someone lit, every time someone chose to stay." She frowned in the serious way children do when they understand more than adults expect. "So it's priceless?" I smiled. "Yes," I said, "exactly." That Sunday I made chicken soup from Grandma's recipe. I did not measure anything. I used too much pepper, not enough salt, and somehow still cried when it started to smell like her kitchen. I set one bowl across from me at the table, not because I believed she would come sit there, because remembering is also a kind of showing up. My family sold my grandmother's ring for $12,000. They thought that was its value. They thought if they turned it into a check, they could turn her love into something spendable, something forgettable. Something that could be absorbed into a wedding deposit and disappear under flowers, music, and champagne. They were wrong. They sold the metal. They sold the stones. But they could not sell the hand that wore it. They could not sell the woman who raised me. They could not sell the sentence she wrote in her own careful handwriting. "My sapphire wedding ring goes to my granddaughter, Madison Blake." They taught me what family takes. Grandma taught me what family gives. And in the end, that is the lesson I kept. Not the bitterness, not the humiliation, not even the victory. The lesson. Love is not proven by who cries the loudest after you die. It is proven by who shows up while you are still here. Grandma showed up for me every day of my life, and when she was gone, I showed up for her. That is not revenge. That is not drama. That is not making things ugly. That is love, the kind with receipts, the kind that survives courtrooms, lies, missing pages, and empty cedar boxes, the kind no one can sell, not even for $12,000.